Listen, there's actually a little video I want to watch, boys. I know a lot of people are trying to figure out what the best class is for Wrath. Is it gonna be Rogue? Obviously it is. Is it gonna be Warrior, like Priest, Shaman? What do I want to play? And I actually saw Scottejaye here made a DPS tier list on what is the best class. I'm pretty positive, correct me if I'm wrong, that Rogue is the best class for Wrath. Obviously, I mean, Rogue is always the best class, let's be honest. But I'm pretty positive that's like the big juicy pumper one, right? My Rogue, my troll male Rogue, you guys will see that boy topping the meter literally left, right, center all the time, man. It's gonna be insane. But let's see what Scottejaye has to say about this, boys, and we'll see the correct ranking here for the damage here. Okay?
Now, every man and their goblin has done a YouTube video over the last few months talking about tier lists and what's the best DPS in Wrath of the Lich King. I'm not here to tell you they're wrong, but I'm also not here to tell you they're right. Instead, I'm bringing you hard facts with a lot of data behind it. Now, I've got to shout.
This seems a little bit biased. I won't lie, but okay.
Misty on Twitch for actually sending me this, because I use this website a lot looking for historic posts of Wrath of the Lich King to see what's right with private servers and what's wrong with private servers.
You could
and trust me, there's a lot when you look at private servers that you need to just forget about, because it's going to be different in Classic. But one thing from original Wrath of the Lich King to today, which will change very little, is the amount of DPS that we do. And you've got to remember, by the time ICC...
Will it really, though? I feel like people do it. I mean, maybe like Wrath is a lot more min-maxed because of like Wrath private servers are very prominent, right? But I guess we'll see.
Was out. The skill level of players was a lot higher. Don't get me wrong, they didn't have the 10 years or so sat on private servers perfecting their classes, but these data sets are so big that it will really give you a good idea. So let's run through it. All of this was taken from World of Logs. If you don't know what World of Logs is, it's basically what Warcraft Logs is today. It provided a lot of useful information, far more than just DPS, and they also post the top 200 DPS results for each boss and spec. I
like how you guys are just checking the weather, man. You guys just keep doing your thing. I love you, chat. You guys are great.
30,000 raid passes were uploaded to World of Logs every week. So a little bit about this data set. All the data was for ICC 25-man normal. The data for average DPS was gathered from a sampling of about 25% of all raid passes during the 10% raid buff period in ICC.
I mean, to be fair, ICC is like the final patch, right? There's a lot of stuff before ICC, so like... Yeah, this is like a little bit different than the first one, yeah.
Because the raid buff was the same for all passes, and the gear levels are fairly recent. The data encompasses all gear levels, all skill levels, and includes both wipes and kills. Any results that were 0 DPS because they were being boosted or AFK were removed before calculations. Some important information. The number does not in any way represent the damage that you can do, or your class can do. It's possible that certain specs reflect higher, not because they're capable of more DPS, but just because they're easier to play. And that's important to remember. If you see your class really low down on the damage meters here or on the logs here, don't be disheartened, because I'm sure you will do just fine.
Go respec, guys, instantly. Go reroll right now. No, I think everything is going to be viable to a certain degree, right? Obviously, the player is more important than the class.
You're exceptional, and you'll see what I mean when we look at the top passes versus the average passes and how some of these classes move around. The graphs are formatted to show the scale starting at near the lowest represented DPS rather than at 0. This, in effect, is zooming in to get a high fidelity view of the comparative DPS. Actual DPS numbers are included, rounded to the nearest 100. You'll see some specs that may not even be included in some of this, like Frost Mages and Sub-Rogues, just because they're so underrepresented. And that's because they're useless.
I think Assassination Rogues is, like, really good, and then like Combat Rogue is also really good. I think Combat Rogue gets a lot better during the later phases of Wrath.
If you're planning on rolling a Death Knight, Death Knights are also not included in this purely because trying to differentiate between tanks and DPS across 3 different specs was very difficult for him back in the day. We know that's not the case today with Warcraft logs. So first of all, if we look at the average ICC DPS, the chart shows us average DPS spec for...
I mean, boys, all I'm gonna say is that my Rogue in Wrath is gonna absolutely destroy every single meter there is, dude, except the death meter. That one we're not gonna farm.
For all ICC bosses combined. So some fights favor certain classes or certain specs, but once you combine it all, this is what the distribution looks like.
This is
Assassination Rogues have a clear lead, a trend that will continue as we progress. But interestingly, if you remove them, then every class has a spec within 10% of the top DPS.
I like
On
that.
the low end, we have our 4 poor specs: Frost Mages, Sub Rogues, BM Hunters, and Arms Warriors. They will generally hang.
I like that, like, every spec and like every class is kind of represented in the top, right? It's not just like 2 classes. I think that's pretty dope.
Out on the low end throughout every data set, though Arms Warriors do not appear quite as bad as others. So looking at this, across all bosses, back in the day, we had Assassination Rogues in first place, Fire Mage, then Combat, then Affliction and Demo Warlocks.
Yeah, as he said, he's not going to show DKs because apparently like the DK logs were a little bit miscued, but this is gonna, you gotta take this into consideration, guys. This is an ICC, right? This is like, ICC is like the 4th raid. Yeah, there's Ulduar, no, there's Nax, and Malygos and Obsidian Sanctum. Then there's Ulduar, then there's TUTC, and then there's Nax, and then there's Ruby Sanctum, right? So this is like way into Wrath. This is like, I think the graph is gonna look a lot different in the first one, right? Like in the initial first phases. And it's very old statistics, right? This is from way back in the day. Like nowadays, maybe it's gonna look similar, but maybe not, right? But yeah, it's definitely gonna look a little bit different, probably. And this is only for ICC back in the day.
Feral Druid, why so low? Shadow Priests, Fury Warriors, Ret Paladins, Enhancement. You can see slowly make your way down to Boomy, and then really anything below Boomy, you wouldn't even really consider a DPS. Now, this is where it gets interesting. If we look at Festergut DPS, this is a very melee-friendly fight. For all melee classes, this fight is just a training dummy and should treat all melee equally. Range have to do some moving.
Bruh! Oh my god, that's my troll rogue right there, guys. You see that? Yo!
And are subject to vile gas, which can hit them up to 6 or more times each fight, substantially hurting their DPS potential. But just looking at this, you can see how far ahead Rogue is to everything else. Feral Druid's sitting just below, and then it slowly makes its way all the way back down to Boomy again. But this is all passes, this is all skill levels, all gear levels, everything, you know, over 25,000 or whatever it said, you know, different passes, putting it all together and then getting an average. You might not be average. So if we now look at Festergut...
I like how he does, that's cool. Festergut, normal. But again, this is from back in the day, right? Yeah, it's back in the day.
Top 200. So this is the top raid passes for each spec.
They're
you
pretty
can
close.
See it's a very different story. So now we're talking, honestly, these are the better players. The top 200 of each class. You've still got rogues at the top, but look at how everything's shifted around with Mage, Fury, Feral, and look how high Boomy is now compared to where...
If I remember correctly, like Death Knight's actually pump as well. He's not... Death Knights aren't shown here, as he said, but I remember Death Knight slapping hard. Yeah,
it was before. So we can clearly see that Boomy, if you're a better player, you can perform very, very well and almost equally to everybody else. The
chart is shown? Where? Oh, the blood. Yeah, I see the little blood thing. Oh, and that. I guess that... No, this is Affliction. That's Affliction. Oh! Never mind, guys.
Definitely looks a lot more realistic to what the player base is like today. Because I do believe that we are probably better than we were back then. I think there's not going to be massive differences. I'm not saying that this chart's going to be small. We're going to be doing double the DPS. It's not going to be like that because there's not that much you can do wrong. You know, the theory crafting that happened back then, we still rely on to a certain extent today. By that, I mean, you know, things like...
Kidding? Don't say the Y word. We've talked about this. Don't say that.
Latest jerks. You know, everything that needed to be worked out has already been worked out. We might find a few cheesy ways of doing things. We always do when it comes to Classic. But overall, looking at these, you can see what I've been saying all along, where play whatever class you want. You know, if you watch my class picking guide that I've done, you literally can play any single class, and one of those specs will perform very well. And it's worth...
Look at Quixotic here, palming as a shaman. At the end of the day, man, like, I know all these guides and stuff like that, it's like, yeah, like, I understand people want to pick something that's viable, but at the end of the day, as long as you're a good player, everything is viable, right? You can really play anything you kind of want as long as you're good, and you will get invited and you will get groups, right? It's just play something you think is fun. Don't swap to like a class just because it's broken, right? Play something you think is enjoyable and you have fun playing, and you're probably gonna have a better time, right? So, yeah.
Noting when you look at this one, DKs actually are included. They're not included in the overall, but they're included.
Shaman. Okay, there's limits to the madness, though. Okay, there's limits to the madness. All right, it's you know, you gotta, you know, Yeah, you know, but it is what it is. If I play DK, am I going to be tank role only? No, I remember like Frost DK's dual wield popping off. And Unholy, you have the pets, you got like, you know, your stuff rolling is really good. Like Death Knights are big park champ. I'm gonna make a Death Knight myself. I'm not gonna main Death Knight, but I will create a Death Knight. Definitely, 100%. Yeah.
On Festergut here, and you can see where Frost is sitting versus Unholy versus Blood. So you've got Frost sitting at the top here, just over Unholy, and Unholy over Blood. But both of them sit very middle of the pack, and I would expect to see Warriors a little bit higher. You've got to remember, this is only 25-man normal, so some of these people won't be in full BIS, and that's what a lot of tier lists are based off, being full ICC 25 heroic geared, and then saying, right, Furies are the best DPS. But let's be honest, by the time you're full ICC 25 heroic geared, Kata will be out or something else will be out. You know, you're going to probably get some ICC 25 heroic gear, and you'll get your Shadow Maw, and you'll get your Deathbringer's Will.
I will get glaives soon, guys. It's very soon. I'm going to get the glaives. Just wait, guys. Yeah, I mean, you can't really, you know, nobody will, it's very rare somebody will literally be full BIS in a current phase, right? It is very rare, unless your name is Laddie, right? Like, then it's not going to happen. It is what it is, but it's a good indicator, I guess, to go a little bit from, but you don't take it with a grain of salt, right?
Being every single slot BIS when we know how quick Classic seems to move nowadays, highly unlikely and not really worth worrying about. This is actually a good set of data to base your guesstimations on how you're going to perform. And then if we look at Rotface, now this is switched round, so this is
Mages! Look at the Fire Mages blasting here, man.
Ranged friendly fight, because at times everyone has to run, and range classes at least have the option of occasionally being able to launch off some instant attacks from range, where the melee are forced to just watch the fight unfold. It's enough to finally knock the rogues out of the top slot, but just barely. So now you've got your Fire Mage on top. You're seeing all the melee drop down a little bit, and you know the casters rising up a little bit. But again, this is the average DPS across everybody. When we look at it again, but for the
Fans skal der hytten, bror, mand. Hvor kommer den der hunter fra? There's a hunter, man. Look at... What the hell?
25, look at what a different picture it paints. We've now still got hunters on top, followed by arcane mages. The rogues are still sitting up there quite strong, but now Boomy, look how high Boomy is on Rotface, because it can instant, you know, use its dots and everything when it's moving. And when we're looking at these, the top 200 passers for each class, you can quite clearly see it paints a very even picture again. There is not a massive difference between saying destruction at the bottom there, all the way to marksman at the top. There's a couple of thousand DPS difference, but as an average, you're talking middle of the pack classes, your warlocks, your shadow priests, your ferals, all still very, very strong. And that's it. It was only a quick video. I just wanted to show you it because it's a really interesting article. Again, showing you everybody as an average for every class and where they sit. The top 200, which, let's face it, we all strive to be in the top 200 on Warcraft logs. So if you're one of those people that regularly is passing, you know, 97, 98, 99, or 100 passing, then you know you can expect this, the top 200 ones, to be a fairly accurate representation of what sort of damage you're going to do. Now, remember...
And honestly, what I like about Parses is that they're kind of individualized to your class. So even though you're not the top in the raid, you could still be the top of your class. Like... on Warcraft logs. I think that's why Parses are really cool to like follow, right? Because like maybe you're in a phase where let's say Billy is playing a Fire Mage, right? And Billy is not popping off on the overall meter on Fire Mage on bosses, but he is actually topping, like he's doing 99 parses as Fire Mage. So it's like even though he's not top DPS, he's still like, you know, parsing 99s. So I think that's cool. That's why I like Parses, and I think they're fun. They're not end all be all, but they're fun.
Remember, this was ICC 25-man normal. Some of these people could even just still be in TOC 25 gear. So you could say some of these numbers might be achievable late tier 9, very early tier 10. But overall, again, I thought it was a very interesting article. It's not a tier list, and this is why looking at tier lists is pretty pointless, because they won't accurately represent what we've just looked at now. I'm pointing down at my iPad, not up. Honestly.
Oh, look at this.
I'm pointing at. It just looks a bit weird, don't it? Anyway, like and subscribe. Roll the outro. There's lots of ways you can support the channel to keep me here putting out World of Warcraft content and covering all future MMOs. Consider joining the channel as a member. You get access to emotes. Everyone will know you're a member when you comment on future videos, because you get a nice icon next to your name. And you get access to members-only videos, which I'll be putting a lot of on the channel throughout the year. Additionally, there's a Patreon link in the description as well. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you, Scott. Oh. Thank you,
now,
Scott.
Every man.
All right, I'll link the video in the chat, guys. He makes some really nice informational videos. But I think the takeaway, guys, go give it a like. Go support the boy. Sub to the boy. Sub to Scott. He's a good boy. He makes some good videos. I think, like, at the end of the day, like, play whatever you want. I think it's a good indicator of like, to see where you're standing on the overall thing. Like, oh, I want to play a Feral Druid. How am I gonna look like, you know, on the meters? It's a good way of looking at it, but it's not the end-all be-all, right? I think that's a good way of looking at that. But yeah, is that why you're rolling a rogue? Bro, I have been playing a rogue for a long time. You may not know this, but I got rank 14 in Classic WoW on a rogue. Yeah, I did rank to 14. That was me. I had no life. But no, I don't know. I've always liked playing rogue. I think rogue is always super fun. It's always something that I've been enjoying playing. So it's definitely something I want to get back to, right?